Good morning, everyone, and greetings from Columbus, Ohio. My name is Brittany Sandidge, and I am here at the Prevention Action Alliance headquarters. We are excited to be with you today. We have a couple of contributors to this morning's webinar, so we're going to try to be respectful of your time, but just be aware we might go 5 minutes over or so. Make your adjustments as you need to. As we get started today, just a quick reminder that you will be able to ask questions throughout the broadcast. We will try to address those at the end of the call unless we find that they are necessary for clarity for purpose as we go forward. All right. As many of you know, September is National Recovery Month, so we just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that there are many communities going across the state of Ohio today that are bringing some attention to the importance of recovery, that recovery is possible. For those of you who are planning to attend the Rally for Recovery at the end of September at the Ohio State House, that event is being put on by OCAR. We will be there, so please make sure that you stop by and say hello. It's an important day for communities in terms of us addressing stigma here in Ohio, really uplifting recovery and bringing communities together to support one another. So we look forward to seeing you out there. If you want to let us know you'll be there, just shoot us a quick email. Recently, you saw in our SPCA e-news that that State Representative Robert Sprague out of Findlay has convened the Hopes Congress Roundtable. We put out the initial media advisory that showcased that on September 14th at 1 p.m., the first of these roundtables will be hosted for public input. I've got a lot of interest and feedback from those who are in SPCA and those who are part of the GAP network. We do have additional information about upcoming dates at this point. Marcie Seidel was able to get us some information from the offices about what we can expect coming forward. In October, there will be 4 subsequent meetings. On October 2nd, one will be held in the Cleveland area. On October 5th, there will be one in Cincinnati. On October 12th, one in Akron, and on October 16th, one in the Dayton area. We are getting additional information about specific locations, and we will share that in the forthcoming week with all of you and try to get you some more information about what you can expect at those particular meetings if you are interested in attending. Again, for those of you who are potentially attending the September 14th meeting, we encourage you to share what that experience looks like so that we can be sharing that with SPCA membership across the state as we move through the month. The last component before we kick into some additional bigger updates, I'm going to pass the phone to Marcie Seidel and let her talk a little bit about issue 2 here in the state of Ohio and what's going on there. Marcie?
Thank you, Brittany, and good morning, everyone. It's a delight to be here today. I want to talk a little bit about issue 2, which is it's called the deceptive prescription drug ballot issue. It's been, and you should certainly see probably a lot of information about it, and I encourage you to go into their website, which is deceptiverxissue.org, to learn more about it. This is an interesting thing that's been tried in California and has been defeated in California. And right now that we know some very basic things about it is that it does have the potential to reduce patient access to medicines, which goes against what we hear from the proponents on this. It puts the discounts for the VA already that they're receiving already at the VA at risk, and it's additionally it's something that is only for people who receive state health insurance. So it has nothing to do with the average person, which I really want to drive that point home, that the majority of the people in the state of Ohio will see no benefits from this at all, other than it's an outside entity that's coming in and scrambling the marketplace for prescription drugs in the state of Ohio, which could affect then all of us, not with lower costs, but maybe with reduced ability to get different drugs and maybe even our prices. So keep that in mind. So we are just, Prevention Action Alliance has signed on as an opponent to this particular issue. We encourage you to go on and their website and get more information. We'll be sending out more information as well. and then do as you please with this information once that you've gotten it. So I thank you for taking the time to take a look at it. It's a big one for the state of Ohio, and it's important for all of us to be up to date on it, to understand the ramifications of it, and to do what we feel is appropriate. Thanks.
Thank you, Marcie. To those who are on the call, we are interested in whether or not your local agencies or your efforts have actually taken any official stance on this issue. If you wouldn't mind sharing that in the chat or the question box today, we'll start to kind of keep a little bit more tabs on sort of where your communities are in this conversation, and whether or not there's anything we can do to assist you in having that conversation. Next, I'd like to introduce a guest to our advocacy webinar today. With us, we have Javier Sanchez with R.E.A.C.H Communications, Inc. Javier is coming to us with information about an important campaign that really works with youth, is seeking to address the misconceptions that are out there and really begin to make a difference with some of our youth voices across the state of Ohio. I'm going to let him share some more information about the intent of that today, but just wanted to make sure everyone was mindful. We will be sending this information out shortly after the webinar with some additional dates, locations, and things he's going to talk about. Javier, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Hi, thank you, and thanks for having me. Like she said, my name is Javier Sanchez. I'm with R.E.A.C.H Communications, and we are a health and wellness marketing firm, and so we develop marketing campaigns and programs and initiatives centered around health and wellness, particularly geared towards our most vulnerable populations. And about 2 years ago, we started a project with Ohio Mental Health and Addiction Services to launch a statewide mental health and wellness campaign for young people, and we will be launching it this October. The campaign is called Be Present. Be present for yourself so that you can be present for others. Your presence is a present. And it's really a suicide prevention campaign, but our goal is to really not use that word as much as possible. And it's been interesting in leading up to the launch of the campaign, just everything I've learned and experienced. A couple of things happened in May. One, the CDC released a report that Cleveland City Schools has the highest suicide rate in the country, which was a surprise to me and a lot of people that have been involved in this project. And then what also happened in May is I lost my nephew to suicide. He was a sophomore at school in Westerville, and he took his own life while he was under the influence of drugs. So it really has hit home for me in a lot of ways, and just in doing the work. So we are launching this campaign. It's a statewide suicide prevention campaign for young people, and it's really about giving them the tools and skills and resources they need to promote their own mental health and wellness, and so that they can be an ally to their friends, their siblings, their classmates, and really put themselves in a position to be present for them, you know, and to recognize when they're going through struggles and being challenged with stress or anxiety or depression or bullying or harassment, to be willing and able to check in, like the graphic says, to check in, listen, and be a real friend, and be present for them. So we're launching the campaign in October, but leading up to the campaign, the last 2 weeks of September, we are traveling all over the state, going back to the different communities that we've been working in for the last 2 years, because understand this campaign wasn't developed or created in a vacuum. We really wanted young people to take ownership of it, and so they've been a part of the developmental process all the way through. We've been all over the state the last 2 years working with young people, doing focus groups, really getting their feedback, and not just their responses to what we've created, but involving them in the creation and developmental process of the campaign. So when we say it was created by youth for youth, we really mean it. And so we are, in the last 2 weeks of September, we'll be going back to the communities all over the state that we started in and doing 1-hour informational sessions for adult allies and community stakeholders and organizations that are invested in this work, to really give them, number one, to let them know the campaign is coming, number two, to share how they can engage in the campaign and how they can connect or engage their young people in the campaign, and number three, of course, to get any feedback or answer any questions that they might have. And so, like I said, starting on September 21st and pretty much every day, with the week, taking the weekends off, every day after that, from the 21st to the 29th, will be somewhere in the state of Ohio, presenting the campaign to community stakeholders and adult allies of young people. So she mentioned information that's going to come out after this webinar. I believe you'll get a email that has the list of locations, and it'll have a registration tab as well if you would like to come out and participate. And I hope you are able to. Like I said, they're 1-hour sessions. We're going to feed you because most of them are either a lunchtime or an after work session. So we'll have refreshments there for you as well. But just so everyone is aware of what's about to be launched here in the coming months of or here in October. So that's pretty much it. I don't know if this is a time or opportunity to take any questions or how that really works, but mainly just wanted to thank you all for the opportunity to share this information. We're excited because a lot of work has gone into this to make sure it's not just an awareness campaign, but it's actually a campaign that will connect young people to resources that are immediately accessible and relevant and to the issue at hand.
Thank you so much, Javier. As folks are beginning to type, I can see them. If you'll hang on just for a couple minutes, and we'll direct any questions. But to address Javier's previous point about various locations, dates, and times for these meetings, those will all be sent out today for each of you to take a look at and be able to distribute through your own networks. And we're excited to be able to help and partner with that effort. The more good, the better messaging that we can get out there, the more opportunities for community engagement, all the better. So now has come in our time of the webinar to pass this off to Tony Coder, let him share a little bit in terms of some medical marijuana updates, some insight into what's going on at the national level. And as we're going through this, don't forget to get your questions in. We do know that we are moving fast today. We want to make sure we can be responsive. Tony, it's off to you.
Thank you so much, Brittany. Glad to be here this morning on a fine Tuesday morning, the September the 12th. To get right to it, we have a medical marijuana update here in the state of Ohio. Hocking College has decided they've applied to be the state testing site. They will be, according to law, the first year the state testing site that tests for purity and all of the different, the THC contents and all of that kind of stuff. It has to be at a institution of higher learning. Hocking College just decided to apply. So they are the only ones to apply. So they should get it. Although, through the application process, I guess things could change. But it would actually take a change in law for a institution of higher learning to get that state testing site accreditation. So Hocking College will be doing that. Interesting piece in our last medical marijuana meeting. It was announced that I know on the last webinar I announced that we should have where who the cultivators are in the state. Well, they have decided to push that back until November, which caused a little bit of a hubbub, if you will, for folks. They were very concerned about how this was going to impact the ability to start actually growing pot in this state. Because they have to go get the buildings and all of the equipment and all of that kind of stuff and seedlings. I still don't know where the seedlings are supposed to come from, other than I'm guessing illegal marijuana plants, but that's not for me to decide. But the cultivator license designations are going to be pushed back to November now. So we will not know where the cultivators will be located. They are. We will also probably be closely followed up as soon as they're announced, probably the next day, maybe that afternoon, with lawsuits and such litigation of people who didn't get chosen. We'll follow those, or we'll file those. So it's still quite a bit up in the air how the cultivators will finally be rolled out. Dispensary applications. We talked a lot about dispensaries, where they're going to be located in the state. And how they'll be equally distributed. There will be 60 dispensaries in the state of Ohio. Those applications are out, and the dispensaries will be processed and chosen in November as well. So that's about the same time the cultivators will be chosen. The dispensaries will also be chosen. Dispensaries, it's not nearly as lucrative of a business as in fact, we see some dispensaries actually going out of business because you can't write the business expenses off on taxes and things. However, so there's about 50% of your profits actually go to taxes, or 50% of your income there. So it's not nearly as lucrative of a business, but they'll be allowed to. Those will be chosen in November as well. So can they get the program going by September 18th? That was discussed a lot in the last Medical Marijuana Advisory Committee meeting. They have assured, the powers that be have assured us that will happen, even with the late choosing of those cultivators and those who will be growing the pot here. So we will wait and see. But by law, it has to be up by September of 2018. So we have about a year to get things going in this state. Everything has to be functional. Senator Yuko also has introduced a state concurrent resolution to reclassify cannabis. It's not something I've really mentioned a whole lot because he's a Democrat in the Senate. It's almost like having, I'm not even going to try to make an example. So let's leave that one alone. But it's very rare. The Republicans have a supermajority in the Senate. So to have this actually pass is almost impossible. We don't see that happening, but it is something that is out there and has been referred to committee, but a date of a hearing has not been chosen yet. The National Survey of Drug Use and Health was released this past week, and one of the big stories that we saw across the country was teen marijuana use was down, which was interesting. Kind of an interesting twist to it, because when you look at the states with recreational marijuana programs, teen use is up in those states. It's actually quite a bit down in other states where there's not a recreational program happening. Colorado is still number one. We will get the finalized state estimates, in the coming months, but every time someone says, "Oh, teen marijuana use is going down," well, yes, that is true on a national level. But when you look at the, couple of states that actually have working marijuana programs, you'll see that their teen use is actually up, and that's 12 to 17-year-old. The survey also says that every day 7,000 new people try marijuana for the first time. So a lot of first-time users that are starting to experiment with this. Daily users, so folks who use it every day of their lives, have doubled over the last decade. So it's not your occasional, user. although 50% of the pot sold in Denver is actually to tourists, we see that daily use of marijuana is actually has doubled over the last decade, and that's across the nation. That's not just in recreational states, that's across the nation. Also, almost twice as many 12 to 17-year-olds are using pot compared to cigarettes. So, as we see tobacco, it's pretty widely, understood by kids that tobacco use continues to slide, and that it is considered dangerous. However, pot use is considered benign, and more kids, are using pot compared to cigarettes. So almost twice, which is something that a decade ago you would almost laugh at, thinking that a 13-year-old kid, be using pot. But, that seems to be the new norm, especially with all of the public awareness, or I guess social media that folks are putting out there about how safe marijuana is, even though it's causing more and more problems, which we'll get to in just a second. Also, over the age of 18, it has increased pretty significantly, pot use, daily pot use, and it is, like I said, a pretty significant increase in use. And also, what they're finding is that unemployment for that age range is going up if you're a marijuana user. So you're seeing a much higher unemployment rate for these folks who are daily users than you did a decade ago, and that then you see for folks who do not use do not use pot at all. So you're seeing, unemployment. So it's going to start impacting, it's already impacting the workplace and workforce. However, what you're seeing with this new, survey is that unemployment has jumped significantly among this 18 to 25-year-old age group. So it's something I think we really have to pay attention to, as we're working with our employers across, in our communities. It's something that we have to make sure that they understand that you think your workforce is small now. What's your pool of what you're choosing from? It's going to probably get less and less as we move forward with this quote unquote grand experiment. Also, in the last couple of weeks, the Denver Post had a stone driving report. Interestingly enough, the Denver Post has they're pretty pro-pot as far as their reporting of what's going on with marijuana. They even have a section in their newspaper called The Cannabist, and which is basically recipes and different great things about marijuana that you can do. And that's actually a section, how we used to get the old little life sections. I don't know what they're called nowadays, in your Sunday paper. Well, they have one just for pot. So they're pretty pro-pot. However, they did a study of drug driving and marijuana and what's going on out and this is just Colorado. This is Colorado specific. But what they saw was a 40% increase in the number of all drivers involved in fatal crashes since legalization has happened. So 2013, they looked at numbers from 2013 to 2016. There was actually, so that's a pretty significant increase. When you're looking at the number of marijuana impaired drivers in fatal crashes from that same time period, there's been a 145% increase in those folks. We're also looking at, marijuana now being found in 1 out of 5 drivers in fatal crashes. We get an awful lot, well, my God, they've probably been drinking as well. And, well, in their studies, they found that 69% of those people had no alcohol in their system. This is marijuana specific. So the majority of folks only have marijuana in their system. It's increased from about 10% in the last decade to now 20% of drivers in fatal crashes have marijuana in their system. The scary thing is, one of the things they pointed out was it's not only the numbers of folks are going up, but also it's hard to tell what impairment looks like. But according to the law out there in Colorado, it's 5 nanograms per milliliter of blood. If you find that, you're considered under the influence. There's no impairment test for marijuana, as we know. In Adams County, Colorado, which is the fifth largest county in the state of Colorado, impaired drivers who were killed in crashes actually average more than 30 nanograms. So they're over 6 times the legal limit, and that has risen significantly as well. So we'll not only see more and more drivers who are high, we're also seeing much higher rates of how much pot is in a person's system at the time they are killed in a crash, or kill someone else. A fatal crash does not mean that the driver themselves have to be killed, but they could actually kill another person, driving around trying to get to work or school or whatever. So this is something that I think we really have to look at in the state of Ohio. One of the big issues, had a meeting a few weeks ago. We need some baseline data. How is this going to look for Ohio? What are we looking at as far as what's our how many pot impaired drivers do we have now that are causing fatal crashes? I don't think we have that type of baseline data, and it's something that we're going to need in the state. So as I guess in communities, it may be some conversation worth having with law enforcement, with some of your folks to start determining that. And it might also be a good opportunity for us to reach out to maybe colleges or universities to start studying this, maybe and start getting that data, because it's not going well out in Colorado. Interestingly enough, I was out in Illinois last week, and that was brought up in a hearing. They're trying to legalize marijuana, and this study was actually this impaired driving study was brought up, and the industry who was there saying how great it is out there responded, well, you can't say that legalization is the cause of this. We just think it's kind of as coincidence. It's not a cause. So they have an answer for everything. It was not bought at this hearing, and the senator who was there basically ripped the guy apart, which brought a smile to my little face about 20 rows back. But it is something that we're going to continue to get this. This is not this was not caused by legalization. It's just something that is coincidental. But I think we can see that the more pot you put in a community, the worse your outcomes are going to be. So I wanted to really quickly, because we're having a lot of trouble with this in states in Colorado and Washington. California is really, really dealing with this in a terrible way. And even Alaska is having some issues with this. And this is what's going to be approved in Ohio, as you know. It's going to mostly be, our market is probably, I'd probably bet my house on it, that this is going to be the major piece of the market of marijuana. It's going to be these edibles. Plant matter is included, but you can't smoke it. This is all, this is about 40% of the market in Colorado, but you're allowed to smoke it there. So these edibles are going to be what I think is going to probably be king of the market once this is finalized in 2018. Totally approved, up to 70% THC. You'll be able to get in these medications, or in these edibles. So pretty. That's pretty high potent stuff. Again, when you're comparing 14% coming out of Colorado for plant matter, 70% THC will knock your socks off. It's something that we have to talk to parents about. We have to educate our schools about, our workplaces. This is not going to be something you're going to be able to smell on someone or necessarily even see or recognize. What kid doesn't have a lollipop? This is going to be something that we have to watch and make sure that it's going to be legal here, and which means more of it's going to be out on the streets, more of it's going to be in our homes, and more of it's going to be available to our young people. Again, these are more of the same types of edibles, chocolates. They could have cotton candy, lollipops, infused products as far as liquids. So you can have soda pop with that's marijuana infused. Again, totally legal in the state of Ohio come September of 2018. It's another product that scares me. I think about as much as maybe more as the marijuana edibles. It's the wax. It's these things that this wax is a pretty high potency marijuana product. The difference between wax and wax and dabs and shatters and all of those types of concentrate products are actually the fastest growing market. They don't have the market share yet because people, it's a somewhat of a new product created in just the last couple of years. The difference between edibles and waxes and oils and things like that that you're able to vaporize, basically it's how you get high. In the edibles, it's going to take somewhere between 30 to 45 minutes. That's where your problems with poisonings are going to come, especially with young people. They're not going to feel that bite of the chocolate bar and stop, because they're not going to feel anything in 10 or 15 minutes. And as having a couple of kids, they're not very patient individuals anyway. Especially when we are a society built upon instant information, instant gratification, those types of things. Marijuana wax, which again is going to be vaped, is a very, very high potency type of product, and it's very, very quick into your system. It's almost an immediate blast. You're inhaling, it right into your lungs, right? It goes right to your brain. So it's going to be almost an immediate high. It's what we're associating more of the psychosis and schizophrenia with, when you put, an instant blast of this stuff on your brain. And it's pretty dangerous, something we need to start educating now, because if we wait until next September, we're going to have trouble with we're going to have trouble with folks getting into some health issues with these types of things, especially young people. We do have, like I said, plant matter, which is available. There's 35% THC available. You will be able to go home with plant matter and be able to do these types of things where you could create your own wax. It's not legal. You're supposed to get it from from the store, but it is something that is, somewhat easy to do. However, the issues come with hash oil explosions. FEMA's actually issued a bulletin in February of 2016 to help law enforcement identify butane hash oil explosions. So this is something that you might want to talk to your law enforcement officers about. Again, not bad idea to educate parents and community groups about that. This is basically going back to the old meth lab days when things explode. What you're having here is the same type of explosion. And on the slide coming up here, these are the top one was a apartment complex in Colorado. There's a gentleman there who has been blown up. It blew up in his face in Colorado, and the last one with the guy's garage on fire. Tried to do it in his garage in California, and you can see that didn't turn out really well for him. So again, we talk about the waxes, the oils, the butane honey oil, the shatters. Shatter is like looks like a piece of very thin, hard candy that you put into a vaporizing pen, one of those vape cigarette things, and it's again immediate high, very, very intense experience. Actually, the executive director of NORML, National Organization to Reform Marijuana Laws, actually asked for these types of products to be banned because he's had such a bad experience with them. He's a guy smoked marijuana 50 years. It caused him to immediately have an issue, and he said he couldn't climb out from under his covers for about 90 minutes. It was that intense, that scary to him. It was, this is not your Uncle Louie's pot that you may have had from years ago. This is, and I don't have an Uncle Louie, by the way, but it's not something to mess around with. And again, this is, this next slide is, how they're going to use it. They're going to take the the oil. They're going to take the dabs. They're either going to do a homemade type of setup, which is like the young lady's using in the right-hand corner, or they're going to use it in the vape cigarettes and those types of things. We'll probably also have a market for it. That's what the juju joints are. Those are that's a marketed product out in Washington State that is basically 150 puffs of marijuana-infused oil. That's 150 puffs that, is self-controlled. So it isn't something that it delves out, it divvies out 150 puffs. That's all self-control. So, again, we need to make sure that folks are educated on this, not products that are safe at all, not products that you associate with marijuana, in traditional forms. But these are what's driving the market. I think our plant matter market will be very, very low. I don't think that will make up probably, if we see from other states, I'm guessing the plant matter will be somewhere between 20 to 25% of the market, whereas the edibles and the waxes will be, will make up the other 75 to 80% of the market. Much more dangerous. And then finally, we will have advertisements and things like that, so get used to that in your Sunday in your papers and things like that. We also had some folks from cable TV want to advertise those on television as well, which is FCC would probably come down and close us down. Those are not legal in Colorado, but it is a market that folks are seeing in the state, especially cable lobbyists and those types of folks. So that is what I have for today. Something we have to really be careful about and understand and educate on.
Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you all very much for hanging in for the few extra minutes here today. We do value your time. We just want to make sure we can give you all that is going on in a month's time and all of the important insights you'll need to be carrying into your community. Most of the questions that I have received so far are in relation to upcoming dates, both for the HOPES task force as well as for the Be Present campaign. Just to reiterate, we will be sending all of that information out. It will go out this afternoon, and we will also contain in it the recorded webinar so that everyone will be able to access as well if you need to get back to it. So in order to honor your time, those are all of the questions we've received. We're going to end the call now. As always, do not hesitate to reach out to us to let us know if you have any questions. And if anyone is planning to attend the upcoming September 14th roundtable in Bowling Green that is being hosted by Representative Sprague, please do let us know. We are seeking to make sure that we can keep tabs and have prevention represented at each one of these meetings. Thank you all so much, and we look forward to seeing some of you next week at SPCA on Tuesday in our new home here in Worthington. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.